doesn't really need much of an introduction because he is pretty much one of the premier watercolor artists in Pittsburgh, Western Pennsylvania area. He is currently in the Aquia show with a really, really gorgeous piece, but he teaches around, he's been in various arts venues. You actually are teaching, you didn't teach it, right, the workshop?
I'm sorry,
You
which
have a
one?
workshop coming up at Staples? No?
Oh, I have a workshop coming at the Stifle, yes.
Is that full or no?
It's anyone who wants to take it. It's just go to the Stifle website.
So if you're interested, it's 2 days?
Oh, it's sponsored by the Pittsburgh Watercolor Society, so if you go to Pittsburgh Watercolor Society, get any information on that. It's at the end of the month, October.
That's a gorgeous opportunity. It's
October
a beautiful
1st.
venue, an extremely talented instructor. He is a signature member of the Watercolor Society. So virtually any place you go that you see watercolors, you'll probably bump into Ron, I think, almost. But yeah, I'm not going to take up too much time. I'm going to let you talk and show us what you bought. It looks like you've got an enormous amount of wonderful things with you. So take it away.
Okay. Any questions? I'm going to, I'm kind of haphazard, like the absent-minded professor, so I don't have a prepared program. I'll just dive in and hopefully I'll cover some of your questions. I like to start off with a joke, and I would say you artists should always sharpen your pencil using a knife. You've heard that before, right? No. No? You've never heard that? Your art teachers never said to do that? Well, you're supposed to do that because it looks cool.
We use razor blades.
Okay. Just a little bit about me. I was born in Fall River, Massachusetts, where Lizzie Borden spent the remainder of her years. My mom did see Lizzie Borden in her backyard garden. They moved to Western New York, where I grew up, Silver Creek, New York, up in Chautauqua County. In high school, I was doing an art class. I was doing an illustration painting of a woman, bare-breasted, standing on top of a volcano with other volcanoes in the background. I was into the Frank Frazetta thing, the famous illustrator who did Thor-like characters and dragons and all that kind of stuff. Well, the Chautauqua County had just built their brand new mall. It was the first mall in Chautauqua County. This is when I was in high school. They decided to invite all the art classes in Chautauqua County High School to enter into this art show that they were going to have there. And because I was working on that bare-breasted woman, my art teacher said, "Oh, Ron, you should enter this in the Chautauqua Mall art show." And I said, "Oh, okay, you think so?" And so the high school principal came around to tour the pieces to see what was going to be entered, and he said, "No, this won't be going to the show in Chautauqua." And I thought, and that was no problem. I says, "Oh, art censorship. Now I'll be famous." In my high school. Well, the principal left, went back to his office, and my art teacher, Mr. Sharetta, came over and he said, "Ron, this painting is going to the show at Chautauqua." And I thought, good for him to be sticking up for an artist. And I just figured that was my first moment, my first come with me if you want to live moment. Because I was a kid and I was, am I going to be an artist or what? So fast forward to I brought in an actual painting that was in the American Watercolor Society a couple years ago, and it did win an award. And I usually don't bring paintings for show and tell, frames, and there's a carrying case and everything. I've just been keeping it in there
Do you want me to hold it?
for, this plexiglass.
Yeah.
I've been keeping it in
I'll be back.
there to protect it and try and keep the plexiglass clear, because you can't ship glass, they don't allow it. But I'm doing my paintings pretty much the same size, so I'll take that out and I'll put my new painting in and I'll ship it to the next show that it's going to. So, another thing about that painting is that you guys who work in acrylics, I don't know, but in watercolor, they have this thing called the magic eraser. Any hardware store or supermarket or whatever, you can remove watercolor pretty easily. And so I've been doing that, and it's nothing new. It's been around for a while. And I'm just using this as an example. When I do this calendar every year, I did feature this. This was a couple years ago. I added this to the calendar, and they redid the wrong size, and their fault, not mine. And so when they were going to redo it, I thought it was my opportunity to digitally enter a new image, because when I was working on this, I wasn't really happy with this corner of the painting all along, and I got busy, and then I decided, I'm going to mask off that entire section down here and remove that with a magic eraser. I didn't get it down to the white of the paper, but I got it pretty good down to where you can't tell anything's on there. And that's the new version. And by the way, I got the calendars done with the new version. This was the old version. And then I entered it in the AWS. It got in and it won an award. And I thought, well, okay, should I tell people about that? Am I cheating? Is this cheating? I don't know. I'd like to say that I'm not a purist anymore. I'm using white paint, which happens to be acrylics, and which doesn't matter in the AWS because it's water media on paper. There are some water societies that don't allow watercolor pencil, opaque, white, of any kind, because there is a watercolor titanium white. In watercolor, I just happen to use titanium white acrylics. And of course, people say, Ron, doesn't that make it an acrylics painting? Well, okay, I guess it does. But it's 90% watercolor, and I don't mix white with everything in there, but I'm using it to get a tone, to get the tone that I'm looking for, adding the white and whatever reasons. So the magic eraser. And I mentioned the acrylic painters. I suppose it works to a point, but the acrylics, because it's plastic, is going to be even harder to remove. And you know about this, right? The magic eraser. It's been out there in stores for a long time. It works on pots and pans.
Yeah.
Don't use it on your copper pots because you will get yelled at big time. And if you remove something from the wall, it may take some of the paint away too, so.
Can I ask you a question? Does it change the texture of the paper? Does the paint take differently?
No, I've got it down to where it started to scrumble the paper and and I have to remove those little, bumps. But yeah, I mean, you're welcome to look at it up close if you have
You could never tell.
if you have your loop. Okay. Yeah, oh, and, okay, just in no particular order, this is Archie, our dog, and I'm trying to go for abstract design. I'm mostly concerned about what the painting looks like upside down. Is it an abstract painting? And is it eye-catching? I just want you to walk in the room where all these other paintings and then see that painting.
You do thumbnails, you get
that composition?
Yes, I do thumbnails digitally now, and it's fun, and it's in Photoshop, and this is a thumbnail of a painting, or the painting that I'm going to work on, the demo that I'm going to do, and so I get it to the point where it's not necessarily ready to go, but close enough. It doesn't make it automatic, but if I like my digital thumbnail layout, study, whatever you want to call it, if I like it, then the theory is that I will like the painting. And am I copying it pretty closely? Yes, I'm a copyist, but I'm copying my own work. So I'm not just copying a photograph, which is a problem, which everyone wants to do. They don't know what to do, so they copy. And I guess I could say that there are some good paintings that were copied and some not so good paintings that were copied. But I think we should be inventive and change things and compose. You've heard this lecture before. I don't want to lecture you. Pennsylvania Watercolor Society. This was a house in Bellevue, and I composed all the rest of it. I'd like to show you the beginning process, but it takes time, and you'd have to take my watercolor class, I guess, or live with me, to show you the step-by-step things, because when I do this digitally, I have thousands of images on the computer, and just going to find each one takes time. It takes time away from my creative process, and alphabetically does not work. You have to, I'm trying to do it by location. That house was in Bellevue, so I have all the Bellevue shots and all the Coraopolis shots, etc. But this did win an award in the Pennsylvania Watercolor Society, which hasn't been out yet. It's at the end of the month, and the reason I still have the painting is because this show is going to be online this year. It's in the end of the month. I don't know where it is. So that's different. There's a few shows that have been done that. The show is just online. I believe the Aqueous Open last year's show was online only. And so was the Pennsylvania, that show that they showed the girl with the boat. No, that painting was shipped, but the juring process was done online, when they normally always have the jurors show up to see the original paintings when the jurors show. So that's the way it should be. So I don't know what the award is that I won. I got an email. It's wrong, you won. And you'll find out what it is when it goes online. I don't think it's best of show, because if it was best of show, they would have called me. And they would have said, is this Ron Thurston? Yes. Are you sitting? Yes. You just won Best of Show in the Pennsylvania Annual. Okay. Well, that has happened. So I know how that phone call works. So I don't know what the award will be. I don't know why they're doing that, but I did win an award in this year's National Watercolor Society show, which isn't released yet or out. And I can tell you about it. I'm just not allowed to post it and anything. It's like, well, why all the secrecy? I guess they want to make it a big surprise. I do know what that award is, though. I'm just not allowed to post it, like on Facebook or something. And this is the first year I've entered the National Watercolor Society. So I'm happy about that. That's located in California. Okay, this was a little village in Vincenttown, New Jersey, and you'd have to see the beginning photograph and the process to explain what it is. It's just trying to do something. This is, I don't know if I'm off camera when I walk around or not, but this, if you could see the process of this, it was a building that was on the north side. Actually, this was a light post street light post and on and on. And I liked the composition, and I took it and I twisted it and moved some things around and made it into a different painting. I think that's a way to start an interesting painting, by having an interesting abstract shape to begin with. Is it a go or a no-go? And usually it's going to be in black and white, or it doesn't have to be black and white, but in art school they told us your art needs to work in black and white before, if you expect it to work in color, it's got to also work in black and white. Well, color hadn't been invented yet. 1983 is when color was invented. I'm kidding. 1983 was the first year the Illustrator's Annual went full color. So, oh, and the thing is that if you have a logo and it's going to be in the yellow pages, it's got to work in black and white, and then all the newspapers were black and white, except for USA Today, which started doing color. I don't know what year that was, and this is what it is. A hayride. Oh, Halloween's coming up and everything, so I'll put this out and pretend I did it just for Halloween. This is kind of the same as this one, or it looks like the same artist did it, I think. So maybe let's get a companion piece. And anyone ever wants to buy these, buy both of them. Companion piece.
What's this like folded over bit on the tops of all the backs of your paintings? Oh, not folded.
Yeah, just the top it's just something that I do to stiffen the top a little bit, and then I can hang it for show and tell. I can just hang it on something.
Is it tape?
No, it's just the paper folded back. You know, the framers will yell at me, Ron, you're not supposed to glue the back of you're not supposed to damage the back of artwork, photographs in any way. So they put that white tape and archival things that they do. So when I mount these, I do float them. I float on my paintings. I'm not the only one. Jeannie McGuire floats them. A couple of other people float the paintings. And then I glue the back of the paper. So I put the spot of glue there, 1, 2, 3, and that holds it. So I don't want to get yelled at by my framer. I'm lucky to have Mark Rangers at Swickley Art and Frame, who represents me, because he takes my poorly framed plexiglass paintings, and these quality stuff there in Swickley, archival glass, museum quality glass and all that. But I'm lucky that he takes my paintings, and we have an agreement that he'll sell it, and then he'll tell the customer, you know, this artist frames his own stuff, you gotta let me reframe it. So it's a twofer. I sell the painting and he sells a frame. In a nude, not a lot of news. My high school principal would probably not like this painting.
So did they bring models to your high school?
Did they?
Have models at your high
The
school?
one that you did, that you put in the show.
Did they remodel?
No, did you have models for your classes?
No, I don't know where I got that female figure from as reference.
That would be a different high school.
I was thought about doing a demo tonight for you guys, but someone would have had to volunteer. So, anyone? Hands? Hands? No? Okay. Well, once again, it's not a nude, it's a abstract painting with shapes. I'm purposely putting it upside down because I want it to work upside down as a visually exciting shapes and image. And then the other, and I'm also trying to abstract things. I don't want to be obvious, and I'm trying to make her part of the background. I don't even know if you noticed her when I first showed you this, but I've done paintings that people haven't seen what it was I was doing, and like my brother, who knows nothing about art, will look at one of my paintings and say, Ron, I'm seeing a boat. I said, well, yeah, it's a boat painting. And then I gave him a painting for when he got married. He said, Ron, that's a really nice frame. Thanks. Okay, I don't, because of the time allowance, I don't do a painting for demonstration, start to finish. I'm not a virtuoso like Frank Webb, rest in peace, who draws it up and does it, and at the end of the night he's done. And that's not what I do. I do a lot of designing. I spend hours and hours doing these design things because I'm not a natural like Frank Webb. By the way, I'm not Frank Webb. He gave me this carrying case as Frank Webb when he lived over in Washington Street, and then when he moved to Mount Washington, he gave me this. And this thing was out, because I use it to carry stuff, and I gave a demo for this Swickley open house night. At the end of the night, a lady came over and says, Frank, I love your work, and I've always wanted to meet you. I said, I'm not Frank, I'm Ron Thurston. And I'm not Ron Donahue either. I get there, Ron, I really like your oil paintings. No, that's Ron Donahue. I'm Ron Thurston. So he's such a virtuoso and a show-off. They just loved him out at the American Watercolor Society in New York. He was the master of ceremonies for the new members there. They had different masters of ceremony, but he was doing that for the last 20 years that I know of out there. He's just more well-known outside of Pittsburgh than I think that he is in Pittsburgh. So he was 94, 90 something. I went to his 90th. And that was like 5 years ago, so he would have been 95, I think, today. I don't know, whatever. So he gives out, you go to the annual meeting and the dinner and all that, and you get when you become accepted a member of the American Watercolor Society, you get this little pin, and he's the one that passes out these pins. There it is. I'm wearing my AWS pen that I got from Frank Webb. And one more thing, and I'll do a little demo here. The Serge Hauerbach, he died a few years ago, but the American Watercolor Society just posted that this new film came out last week, and it's a beautiful film, and I'm going to give you the website. It's Serge Hauerbach.
You can spell that, right?
S-E-R-G-E, Hauerbach, H-O-L-L-E-R-B-A-C-H, a Russian painter in New York. And make sure that you go to the one that says Adora Phillips, A-D-O-R-A Phillips. Thank you for taking notes. And the date is September 2002. There are others in there. There's a bunch of them that says Serge Hauerbach, a Russian painter in New York, and I don't know why, but the one that you want to see is the Adora Phillips. I don't know who she is. I met him when he came to Pittsburgh and did a workshop. I met him in New York, and he was another 95 or old, still painting, had macular degeneration, but was still painting and could hardly see. What an inspiration. And it's a beautiful film for, he's doing his demo in acrylics, but he also did watercolors, and he would occasionally win awards in the AWS, which he probably has in this one, by the way. I'm not sure. But this is 2 years ago, the AWS catalog. You can take a peek at. Okay. Questions so far? Oh, I didn't talk about those pieces, but, and that piece back there, there's those paintings. And there's that one.
Let me ask you a question. Do you take multiple photographs and merge them or overlap them together?
Oh, yeah, I would, I don't save all those things, and I probably should, so when I give a class, I can say, okay, this is the step-by-step thing that I went to. Sometimes I spend way too much time.
You just layer them on Photoshop and get different angles?
Yeah, if you mess with Photoshop, it's easy to do. I think all computers have some kind of a painter's program by different names and stuff now, and they're basic and simple. Photoshop, I don't even think you can buy it anymore. It's got to go through you have to rent it on the cloud and all this and that, and Photoshop Elements is much more affordable. That's what Bill Versack uses and other, but it just, you need to know, if you're artists, that some of these big shots that are winning awards, they are designing digitally. It's a tool. It's a great tool for artists, and you don't go out and buy Photoshop, but just know that use whatever tool is available to you. I think Photoshop is the greatest art tool that's ever been invented. When computers first came out, when I was an illustrator downtown, I was so stubborn. I thought, oh, real illustrators don't use the computer. Well, how wrong I was to be so stubborn all those years, and I found out, wow, step by step. And I was at Bill Versack's house one afternoon, and he was doing a jazz musician, and he had two versions. The guy had like a purple pants, and the other guy had blue pants, and I thought, well, Bill Versack's designing on the computer. I better get on the computer and design. A parking lot in an old gas station which has been abandoned, or they're using it for storage, and I thought, my eyes saw the go, no go. That means I saw something there, and as ugly as that old gas station was, I assume it was a gas station. It was some kind of automotive, fossil burning business, I'm sure. So is there a political thing going on here where I added the bird? So the bird was not on the wall, but I was turned on by these black and white bricks. Somebody decided to, is it my speaker doing that?
You might be hitting it, yeah.
Someone decided to, design the building, make it look cool. And I think it did look cool, the black and white. That's what caught my eye. And then adding the bird.
What prompted you to put the bird in?
Because I had the bird reference and it was ready to be put in the painting. And I thought, I go through and I thought, okay, I'll try this bird and put it there. Does it make sense? No,
So
because
it's random associations you just put together?
random, accidental design. Matter of fact, the bird overlaps the window. If you see a window, I don't know, but it's an abstract painting.
So you just look at its shapes more than what it represents to see if it works as a design? Is that kind of what?
Yes, and I have to like it, and I have so many beginning paintings, thousands of them, that just aren't ready to go. And I'm waiting. I'll take some background and put this background in there. Maybe that will save the design or make it worth starting. And now I have to go back and that would be the go, no-go. Annie Matzik, who's one of the painters in the Aqueous Open, and a friend, we were having a discussion about this go, no-go thing, and I was talking about this thing here, black and white, on my phone, and I didn't want to be the kind of person that is showing people my phone pictures. But we were talking about something specific, the go, no-go, and this painting was in there, this design was in there, and I was talking about how it's not there, I need to do this, I need to do that, and she said, Ron, that's a go, that's ready to go. Well, we're so fortunate to have artist friends that will say, hey, Ron, do it, what are you waiting for? And when I heard that, that gives me the confidence that, okay, I'm gonna go. Otherwise, I would be designing and over-designing, and I would have this line coming through and become part of this line, and I would make this line come through, and almost like a stained glass thing where the shapes come in, and that itself has an integrity or a design value. Working with designs and shapes, but sometimes you just have to like go, don't over-design something. And I could still do all that, and it would be a different painting, a different artist. It would still be me, but it'd be a different artist kind of thing.
Ron, can we show the two that are on the mantle so that the people online can see them?
By me lifting them?
Yeah, bringing them to the front the way you've been showing the others, that would be wonderful.
Okay. Okay. Me in black and white, and it's not my head because I was looking at the camera and I didn't want to be obviously posed photograph, so I put another kid's camera that I got who knows where. He had glasses, so I kept the glasses on him, and a kitty, and just abstract shapes and everything. So designing, composition, composing.
That's it,
Where's the other one?
right
Right
there.
behind you. It's
Behind you.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. And then here's a case where this is just out the bathroom window looking at the snow. And I said, oh, there's a painting, and that's ready to go. I didn't spend hours and hours and hours design. There is some design time, color placement, and so on. So yeah, I don't always spend hours and hours designing. Ted Nuttall, if you know him, he's a portrait painter, and he takes a lot of time painting things, and his whole class. The Ted Nuttall wannabes, they're taking a lot of time, and he says he takes 18 hours to do one of his portraits, which is when he's doing a class and he's doing a demo, he kept apologizing that it wasn't working for him because he can't do it that fast for the demo. There are a number of, okay, that 18 hours, and then I went back to my class, which it was two classes going on at the same time. This was down in Florida, and I told my class, I says, wow, Ted, that night he gave a demo. I says, wow, 18 hours, no wonder he's so good. He spends that much time. And one of my students says, Ron, but you said you spent 18 hours in the design time for the painting. And I thought, good point. I like Ted Nuttall's work a lot. But know what you're getting into if you take one of his workshops. It's going to be very detailed and time, the process, and everything. Okay, so if you can, yes, I started this, and I spent probably I probably have like 2 hours into this so far. The drawing, it's based on my layout. The drawing is projected. I use a camera Lucida, the original old kind made by Holbein. Not the one that they've been advertising, that Gadget and Facebook and that. There's some kind of a camera Lucida. Same principle, but I can't vouch for how that thing works. It seems a little bit awkward. Camera Lucida, you just have to look it up to see what it is. So I am projecting, and when I do pencil it in, I am doing it sketchy roughly because I want it to look like it was done by hand, even though it's a projected. And the sketchy things, when I said that I'm not a purist anymore, normally when I used to fill in a shape like this here, I would use a big brush, which is back here. No, this used to be one of my favorite brushes. The idea would, you would use a big brush, and this shape would be nice and smooth and clean, and then you get a nice clean watercolor. It's impressive. That's one way to go. That works. I am using Kilimanjaro paper, which is a little bit slicker surface, so you start to see this more of the paint strokes and streaks. And look at these brushes that I'm using now. I'm doing some of these, they're not even watercolor brushes. They're pretty straggly. So when I paint in this person, I'm not going down nice and clean on my paint to get a nice clean edge. I'm actually going the same direction and getting kind of a rough edge. So the more rough edges I get, the more of an excuse I have for the rest of the painting to be rough. And that's where I said I'm not a purist anymore, traditional. I'm trying to be a little bit more sketchy and scratchy, if you will. That's just where I've gone. And because I'm using this smaller brush, I'm just going real fast, and you can see my brush strokes in there. And the quality, the paints I'm using aren't necessarily watercolor quality paints. I'm using some tempera paints and a little bit of accumulated watercolor paints. But they're mostly Daniel Smith and Winsor Newton, which is the best quality, I think.
Ron, can you move yourself just slightly over to the right?
Including this?
Or move that to the left, either way. I'm just trying to see a little more of the painting.
Okay. You guys are welcome to stand and get a better vanishing point kind of thing. Okay, where was I? The brushes, and this smaller brush and filling in real fast gives me that streaky, swishy, swashy look. And I said that I normally would have painted that in nice and clear. And also the drips. I don't have any drips that I see, but I wish I had drips. Where's the drips when you want them?
Are you painting on an angle for a reason?
So I can get drips. It has to do with the viewing, the idea that this is an easel and I'm seeing the image correctly as it should be, whereas it's flat. And I tell my watercolor students who they insist on painting flat because they think they have more control. And I tell them if it's flat, then the watercolor on all four sides seeps back in on itself and creates unusual, weird puddles. If it's at an angle, some kind of angle, at least you have a universal direction of the direction of the drips. And having drips would not ruin a good painting. It's more daring, it's more adventuresome, and I know there's a lot of careful painters, and there's some beautiful, carefully done paintings, and there's some not so carefully done paintings, not so great, carefully done paintings.
So is your paper always dry? You don't wet it first?
I don't do that. It's basically a wet on wet in each shape. And I tell people that this is paint by numbers. I've already drawn in the shapes, and I'm just filling in the paint by numbers thing. It's all I'm doing. So, if I'm going to do a demo here, I'm going to take my time and do this, and you guys will probably probably fall asleep, but that's the way I do it. Hey, watch a Ted Nuttall workshop and you might, demo, and you might fall asleep. Well, you gotta be careful what you say about things. I really respect Ted Nuttall and his work. And I know there's like 6 or more Ted Nuttall wannabes, but he's the one who does it the best, I say. His process is just different than mine. My wife says, oh, I love Ted Nuttall. I'd like to take his workshop. Well, when I was doing a workshop down in Florida a few years ago, at the same time Ted Nuttall, my wife says, oh, I want it. She's an artist too, Sherry. She says, I'm thinking about taking that workshop down with that same week you're there, but Ted Nuttall's workshop. Oh, thanks a lot. You're going to come down to Florida with me and stay with me, but you're going to go to his. That would have been fine. And she's a lot more careful and precise, so maybe Ted Nuttall would be good for her. And Annie Matzik, who I mentioned, was there that same week, and I've talked to her, but I still have been meaning to ask her, how did that go? What did you think? Because all the paintings looked the same, and when they were out to lunch, I walked into the classroom to see how they were doing in his class, and I saw all the Ted Nuttall wannabes, and I saw Annie Matzik's painting. I could see her style. I knew which one was hers. And yet it was still, they were all still doing the same thing, the portraits. But is there a point there? Was that a question that I was answering?
Just wait.
Just for the sake of instruction, I'll do the large shapes first and work in. It doesn't matter. You can start with small shapes and large shapes, or do whatever you want anymore. Remember, I'm not a traditionalist anymore. This is not art school. I studied with some pretty impressive people like Serge Auerbach and Frank Webb and Gene Dobie, and Pat Dedman was a big one from Texas, abstract painting. I took 2 of her workshops. This is one of those Createx airbrush colors, and it is a fluorescent color. Yes, I'm not a purist. Yes, it's fluorescent, but I'm using it because I like the color, not for its fluorescentness. And it doesn't look like that much of a fluorescent color anyways. So 1, 2, and maybe 3. This is really just supposed to be a guide or a suggestion. This thing, because I'm down low, I'm seeing it darker depending on where I view it. It's one of those kind of screens.
You lost your pillow.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I tell art societies and clubs that, and kids, people, workshop people, that a good investment would be actually an artist stool, and you should be almost the same surface of your painting as far as the stool up. But I know that art centers, the funds are limited, so they give you these banquet chairs. What are you going to do?
Have you ever submitted one of your digital thumbnails into a show? Because I mean, that's a piece of art too.
There are shows that allow that mix, that kind of stuff, but no, I have not. This is really streaky. So I don't know if all that suggestion of activity is a good thing or not. At some point, I just have to get in and get out. If I want it to be wetter, I can spray myself in the face or wet it down, and now's when I might start to get some drips. Hello, no drips.
Is there a reason that you used spray to spray it down?
To get this more wet and less brush strokes. Because the old school was that you do it all with one big brush area instead of a little tiny brush filling in the thing. But brush strokes, if they work, there's kind of a uniform direction in my brush strokes. I'll come in this direction. If I see something here that I like, what I'm doing is I'm darkening this. Matter of fact, I don't hardly ever use this brush. Why am I using this brush? I'm darkening it because it's darker and I have lighter, but that might not necessarily be a good thing. If it looks good, leave it alone. Remember, that's just supposed to be a suggestion. So I'm going to stop there. That's the best I can get. Unless I mask it off and completely remove it with magic eraser, which don't make that a bad habit, the magic eraser. Save that for the places. And people have talked about how they're actually painting with the magic. And it's nothing new. There's just kind of a spongy kind of thing, sponginess. You can do a little bit of lifting, especially when it's still wet. And a good idea would be, as I'm painting this, not to stare at it, but look at the center of the painting. How is the painting looking with this? So forget about the brush, what's going on here. And sometimes you get a little thing by accident, like my finger just did that. I like that. Some of the best things happen by accident, like paint drips. It must be a dry day. Okay, I would like to continue on while this is still wet, so I can sort of get the idea that it's wet on wet, and let those edges not be crisp edges, but wet. I don't think you want to do it on all four sides, but, so yeah, see, I'm getting a little bit in there that I like. And up top. It's the wet on wet, or the wet edges is what I try people to go for. And while that's still wet, this is my mixture of, there's tempera and all kinds of stuff. It smells really weird. It's not me, it's that. Okay, and then used any white yet. Ron, you gonna use white? Yeah, there's the white.
You ever use gouache?
I have not, and I get that question, and I'm not even sure what gouache is, but I guess I should know if somebody asks, but gouache, if I'm mixing too much white with something, I'm kind of making it like the gouache quality, I think. Okay, so this, I'm not sure what I'm gonna get, because it's not, it's a gray, and gray is hard for me to get a good gray because it goes too blue and or too red. Bill Versack calls his gray washes dishwater gray. And there's my gray. Well, there goes my magic eraser I can't use.
So do you have problems with your paper wrinkling if it gets really wet, if you don't tape it down?
This Kilimanjaro does wrinkle a lot real quick, and it just seems to be thinner than Arches, and I don't know why that would be, because 140 weight is 140 weight. Why would it be thinner? I don't get it. But I will have to put this under my press, I'll tell you about that, to flatten it out tomorrow as I continue on. Oh, I did want to take advantage of the fact that that's still wet and get some of those edges. And remember, I said that this is just a suggestion up here. Not, so I knew what color to drop in there because I've already decided it. I'll keep those drips because they always happen in just the right place. You can't plan them. All right. Now, I think you're allowed to bring this in to where it should be. We don't know if that's a female. I assume it's a female. So a thinner arm. What I did do, yeah, a smaller brush. I guess give the illusion that you used a big brush, and then you can come back in a little brush and touch up those lines. You just don't want to make it too perfect. I think these things I'm telling move over into acrylics paintings and probably pastel as well, so whatever you guys do. One thing I did that I didn't tell you about yet is this original shadows coming over here, and you can see the drop shadow from them, and this is technically backlit. The light's in front of them. When I was designing this up, these guys were kind of slanting to the left here, and I wanted to get a universal direction slanting kind of thing, either this way or that way. Well, if they're slanting this way and then the shadows are going this way, it kind of contradicts itself. It's not the end of the world, but I would like to have the same uniform direction as though my sun streaks or sunbeams are coming down this way, or rain or whatever. So I've decided that I'm going to go down in this direction. And that's why this is tilted rather than straight up and down, because any drips, I want them to continue that direction. So what do I do with the shadows? Well, I took the shadows and I reinvented them, and I have them coming down this way instead of that way. I skewed them over into here. Now, am I allowed to do that? Change the shadows and put them in a different direction? Huh? Well, I did it. Okay, and doing that, you can see that the highlights on her arm or over here are on the right-hand side, and I've moved the highlight to the left-hand side and painted black in on her arm to continue the idea that, yes, it's backlit, but the sun is coming from over on the left here, coming down. So it's a small detail, but it's something that's important to me. Not painting it by verbatim, you can see that I changed this gray back here and black and made that a color, made this color, made her thing, her case, carrying case, purse, whatever, bag is blue now, because I want this to be a color piece more than a black and white. And when Annie Matzik said on my phone, she says, "Oh, Ron, this painting's a go." It was mostly black and white. I think she was turned on by that. Pat Dews does wonderful black and white paintings. Gina McGuire's are kind of black with some color introduced in there. I'm just not quite ready to do that. It's a thought. I'm afraid that my black and white painting might be very successful, and then I'll want to do all my paintings in black and white. And how about all these photographers now that just grayscale their paintings? All photographs look better when they're in black and white, don't they? So I think you should save that for the special ones to turn into the black and white. But who am I to tell photographers what to do? Any photographers in here? No? So yeah, I'm gonna, actually it doesn't smell that bad, but I have, the one I didn't bring smells, it's like a reddish brown, really smells bad. And when I open that, you can smell it. And the reason it smells so bad is because there's some tempera in there, which they still make with eggs, I guess, and the eggs spoil, and but I like that color, and I save it for special places. Anything else? I'll do this area, or I can do some more. The black, just painted in all one shape. If you do visit that Serge Hauerbach film, you'll see what he's doing in black and white. Remember, he has trouble seeing. I really got inspired by him. I met him years ago, and I liked his early work better than his most recent work, but his most recent work is good too. He does a lot of figures on the beach, and people walking inside, city people, and with dogs. They all have dogs, they're walking. Everybody loved Serge Hauerbach.
I put the YouTube link in the minutes.
Pardon me?
I found the video you're talking about. I put it in the minutes.
Oh, okay.
We'll get to see it.
Good. It's long, so watch the whole thing. He actually does 2 demonstrations in there. It's like, it's so good and you want more. And he says, okay, I'll do another one. So he actually does more.
Do you have to mix inks in, like Dr. Martin's or India ink or anything?
I don't have Dr. Martin's dyes, but I do at home, and I use dyes.
You do?
I don't use them as a process, but I have them because I have a container, and I dip this piece of wood.
They're not stable though, are they? Do they fade?
They last long enough. The Dr. Martin's dyes I use is saddle brown and black, India ink black. That holds its line. The reddish from the saddle brown will fade after a couple of years, but it's still, you can still see it, and it's a technique. It's a thing I've been doing, so that my answer is yes, I've used dyes. I just don't use, if you take a Pat Dew's workshops, he says, bring whatever you have, and geez, pours. He does the pouring thing, and you have all kinds of cool things happening. But if you take a Jean Dobie workshop, and I don't think she teaches anymore, but she's more traditional and a purist and a really whiz with design and the basic things to do with color. A big influence on me. I don't know if I mentioned her name as one of the workshops I've taken, but she, Come With Me If You Want to Live, it was a workshop, the paint escape down in Marathon, Key West, Florida. We went to, it's called Pigeon Key Island, and did plein air painting. And eventually she came and got around to me. And at that time, it was early on, and she did invite me to take her workshop tuition free. Not told a lot of people that, but I was excited about it. And she came around, and I said, you know, I like to be a famous illustrator, working in black and white, because I'm afraid of color. And I don't know about this watercolor thing. And she looked at me in the eyes, and she says, Ron, you do want to do this watercolor thing. So that was my second Come With Me If You Want to Live in my life, Jean Dobie. And so who had the most effect on me? Serge Auerbach, Pat Dedman from Texas, and Don Andrews was a big influence. Probably a dozen or so of these national guys, I took their workshops, and I would recommend it by all means. If, like the Watercolor Society sponsors and flies them in, and you take the workshop, it's a lot more affordable than flying to see them at their locations. But you can go to where Skip Lawrence is, and it's a vacation. It's exciting. Not Pebble Beach, but whatever, Crystal, or whether that beach is down there, where he teaches. Skip Lawrence, another big influence. And he's not so much watercolor, he's more acrylics now. So don't get the wrong idea that I'm pushing watercolor just for the sake of it. Art is art. And he still gets invited to the Watercolor Societies because he's using a wet version and a thick version. His secret is he's keeping those pure little transparent areas, that it's still a watercolor.
So is the traditional working from light to dark with watercolor out the window at this point because you're just working?
It is at this point, because Bill Versack said, he says, I start with the darks, and that makes the initial statement.
Because it looks like watercolor in general has gotten darker over the years as opposed to more of a wash and thinner and transparent. They seem to be much more bold.
You say they.
The styles.
Watercolor paintings in general. Could be, I don't know.
Just even looking through the book you passed around, it looked like many of the entries that were in that show were much darker background.
And that tells you kind of why they got accepted into that show and why things were, because after all, watercolor people shows, we're competing with oil paintings in the dark
And it seems
stuff.
to have changed.
And people have said more punch, and maybe they're finally getting it, the people. High-key painters can still be beautiful paintings. Who's Annie Matsix? She would be categorized as a high-key painter in my painting, but her design and her composition and her sensuality and her design works for her. So all the paintings can't be strong. Kit Paulson, who's kind of a Maurice Pendergast high-key painter. High-key mean lighter colors.
You said Kit Paulson?
Kit Paulson. Do you know her? She
Just moved down south.
yes. We've been friends
Scott Paulson's wife.
for a while. Right. We've been
Met her years ago.
friends for a while. We had a show together. I decided, who do I want to have a show with? And I thought Kit would be the one I want to have a show with. Several. We had a handful of shows together. We go way back when we started Watercolors Gallery downtown Pittsburgh and that. So, yeah, back to the stronger paintings thing. Let me know when we're running out of time, so we don't get fined.
We're about 8:19 right now, so, yeah, it's up to you, however.
You figure you covered
Okay.
everything with the...
Well, if anyone has any questions,
I have a question.
yes,
What's with the coconut?
that's my muse.
Oh, okay.
It's a rattle from one of those third world.
I was wondering if you made it.
There you go.
No, it was, I bought it for,
Hold it up, please, for the sit down. Who aren't here to enjoy the coconut on their own.
That's an unusual addition to a demo.
I think we all should have a painting muse or something off to the side, various things.
Sorry, I cut you off. He had a question.
When I did that workshop down in Florida, for the Florida Watercolor Society, we kept our setups there, and then we came back the next day, and the next day, somebody had put this design in the iris and all this, and I still don't know who did it. But I have a pretty good idea who did it, and I'm not mad. And obviously I kept it on there. So they were,
I'm sure your questions were better than mine.
teasing me.
I do have one question. When you mount this on here, what do you use? Do you use like a tape, two-sided tape?
No, I'm using wood glue, the carpenter's wood glue, and the framers will yell at me because you shouldn't be using that. However, when we were doing,
Elmer's glue?
huh?
Like Elmer's glue?
Elmer's wood glue. It's not Elmer's, but it's Carpenter's,
Carpenter's, yeah.
or whatever it's called.
And it doesn't bleed into the painting?
Oh, no, I'm just using it like a spot. I call it spot welding, 1, 2, 3, 4, at the top. I flattened this out pretty good. You had a question about the flattening thing, so it's not warping too bad. And I like to let it float, because with temperature and humidity, I like the painting to be able to breathe. If it's secured all the way around, you might get funny wrinkles. I haven't had too much problem with that in watercolor. 140 weight seems to work for me. 300 weight is that, even that will warp a little bit. I think it was John Selmanen said he tried the 300 weight, and he liked it till he saw the price. Then he didn't like it anymore.
sounds like me.
How do you pick your subjects? Like, what do you gravitate toward?
When I take pictures, I save them, and then I'll try to put them in. I'm thinking maybe this will someday be a painting. These two people were in New York City a few years ago when I was there. I was walking behind them, and this woman here, hey, I'm a guy, okay? You know that. And she just had the greatest legs, and I'm a guy, and take the picture. But I was taking people walking, people. In my mind, this isn't about my trip to New York City. This is about me getting reference that I may be able to use someday. So I, turned it to black and white, and it just kind of has that feel for it. So if that helps answer your question, I don't know. I have a lot of pictures of Archie, our dog, the black dog, which is a great excuse for getting nice rich darks in a painting. And landscapes, and I mentioned, this was just right outside the window. One day I saw it, and I thought, there's a painting. You kind of have to be in the zone. It has to happen, and I don't know how rare it is, but any other day I'd be in a bad mood, and I think, that's not a painting, and I have things to do. But then when you see it, it's that no go, moment.
It seems like there's something subject, like a dog, a person, or something, and then the background is rich, and that goes into abstract. That's what I see.
The background is part of the deal, so that has to be chosen as well. I hope I'm answering your question. That's a lesson in its own. How do you find things to do? And I guess at some point I must have decided landscapes and people, a figure in a landscape, and the dog, and occasionally a kitty, cat, and people in the cityscapes, dockscapes, as Bill Versack describes them. And some abstract paintings. I have done some pure abstract paintings. It's a tough audience.
Us? Us?
Abstract painting. That's another whole subject. If it works, it's an abstract painting and it catches your eye and you like it. And the people that say, I don't like abstract paintings. I don't understand abstract paintings. Well, you don't have to understand them. If you like it, you like it. If you don't like it, then it's in their mind. Because if someone says, I don't like abstract paintings, you put 10 abstract paintings in front of them and say, okay, which one do you like best? They'll pick one. I kind of like this one. Well, you just said you hate abstract paintings. Guess what? Your subconscious just said otherwise. And abstract paintings is really the secret or the key to great paintings, in my opinion. And that and mystery. Storytelling is big. And I tell people, who do you like? Do you like George O'Keeffe? Do you like Andrew Wyeth? Norman Rockwell? Who doesn't? Don't paint like them, but if you were going to paint like them, go in that direction. You don't have to do that every day, but maybe that's the direction. That if you don't like George O'Keeffe, then don't be painting exotic flowers. But she is a big abstract force to be reckoned with in her time, George O'Keeffe. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much for coming and speaking with us.
I have a little bit of trivia to add. I snooped through our ledger, and we're missing the first 6 years. Nancy started this in '67, I believe, and this starts in '76.
1996 or something. But Ron Thurston was actually given his first check from the West Hills Art League back in September 21st of 1995. So that was your first demonstration for our Art League. Wow.
Wow.
95.
And I got paid.
Yeah. You know what it was back then? It was,
Yeah.
I think it was $35 or $45. Inflation.
I remember being here before.
It was probably, it wasn't here, it
Maybe
was
at the high
probably
school.
at the high school.
Yes.
Well, I remember being here, though, before
Oh,
with a demo.
yeah, I didn't go through.
And also-
the school. You were here.
Also, the high school that's not the new one, but in that, up over there.
The old senior, huh?
And then we were meeting in Nancy's church for quite a few years also.
Oh, yes,
You were
up
probably
over here,
there.
yeah. And there was a basketball game going up on the
Yeah,
floor above us
upstairs, yeah.
at the same time. You could hear them.
Memories. Wow. Thank you so much, that was wonderful.
You're very welcome.